Hi everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Superprime UK with your property specialists. Myself, James Wilds, and I'm joined by a guest today, one of my property peers, David Williams.
Thank you, happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on, David. So I wanted to just start the show here, filming outdoors today in Alfred Place Gardens, New Garden Square in the middle of town, just Fitzrovia, off Tottenham Court Road here. And as ever, bring you the property statistics for the last week. So in terms of new instructions this week, we're at 322, so around the average for the year of what we've seen so far. So again, agents getting that stock on the market. Market hasn't slowed at all yet. Under offer 257, very positive for this week in terms of the data there. So a good pipeline for the transactions over the next week or two. And the sold figures for this week, have seen a real surge actually, 176. So well above the averages we've seen so far this year, which have averaged around the 140, 145 mark per week. So some good positivity there. We've obviously come back into a 5-day week after a number of short weeks with the bank holidays. We've got another one obviously around the corner with the Queen's Platinum Jubilee at the weekend. That's the property data, so it's holding pretty steady so far. A lot of positives there in terms of the sales data. However, as we've mentioned, there has been a few signs of the property market cooling over the last month or so, especially with the cost of living crisis. And I think we're yet to see the full impact of the cost of living crisis actually hit the market as these energy price cap rises. These will be going up later this year again in October. Significantly, whilst these are now reviewed up to 4 times a year for the energy cap reviews. We're going to have to wait and see in the Chancellor's autumn budget if he's going to be able to offer any assistance to the country in terms of the trying to alleviate the cost of living and the rising costs which we've seen, which have been more felt in Q1, Q2 of 2022 this year. And I think David's got a few questions for us this week.
Certainly do. So obviously the Elizabeth line has opened this week. So do you think that's going to be a boost to City and Canary Wharf office markets?
Yeah, thanks. So in terms of the that's opened earlier this week. We know previous week the Queen was down opening the long anticipated line there. I think it's definitely going to provide some better connectivity to certain of those city markets and Canary Wharf markets. So I think in the short term there could be a bit of an uptick in terms of the occupancy levels in those markets. Obviously cutting commuter times, especially anyone travelling from the east. That will definitely be there. I think with employers looking to get that sort of spur of back to the office momentum, it's going to be an extra incentive to try and get people back to the office there.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think there'll be any impact on residential property markets for the areas that the new line serves?
Yeah. In that section, there's a lot of new stations obviously gone up as part of this, which weren't serving the tube and rail network before. So I think that's going to be certainly around those hubs. There's been a lot of new build property built there, and in terms of the pricing, I think a lot of pricing is built into the capital values there. So I don't think we're going to see an immediate shift in property prices there, but I think there could be a bit of a bounce in terms of the rental prices. Across London so far in the first couple of quarters, rental prices, there has been an uptick as was reported in the last few weeks.
And what about over the longer term?
Yeah, I think, like we say, in the longer term, there's going to be some new residential hubs, certainly along the Crossrail line, certainly out in the eastern branches. So I think as we move into sort of the just past the short term into the medium term effects of that, it's obviously going to be districts where people might look to move to improve their commute whilst getting a better balance in terms of race for space, as that sort of trend could continue, people wanting the larger gardens, more outside space, and maybe more of a suburban vibe and being more central, that zone 2, zone 3 sort of market.
Yeah, makes sense. So moving away from the Elizabeth line, so obviously inflation is a big topic of conversation at the moment. Do you think land prices are under pressure as a result?
Ultimately, yes. I mean, the sort of residual appraisals which all the developers will be undertaking, this could impact the delivery of housing, I think, which is already far below some of the government targets. I think they're sort of targeting 300,000 houses per year, and not only in terms of the mainstream housing, which that could impact, but also in terms of the delivery of the social and affordable housing. I think it's obviously build costs have been sort of going up astronomically in the last 12 to 4-month period. However, prior to that, Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, did raise the affordable housing targets up to 40% for a lot of central London sites, which also puts a little bit of strain on the developers in terms of what they can afford to pay for sites. So I think land prices, they are under pressure, and it's not only build costs which are having an impact, but other planning and government policies as well.
And how would you say the market is adapting to these rising build costs?
Well, I think on a micro level, there's definitely more self-builds people have been undertaking over the last couple of years or so, and I know that a lot of those individuals have been struggling to source materials. But on a macro level, property prices are rising as well as build costs. I would say on the whole that the build costs are rising maybe a slightly faster pace than some of those property prices, which has obviously impacted some of the development site land prices somewhat. We spoke about this a few weeks ago, but I think one of the main issues here for developers moving forward is going to be a bit more sort of MMC, the modern methods of construction. How are they going to deliver houses at a cheaper cost and a more competitive rate, which also brings into account in terms of the speed of delivery of houses. How quickly can they erect housing compared with more traditional brick and block houses? So I think that's going to be a real topic, and another thing is getting those modern methods of construction agreed with all the building warranty providers, structural warranty providers. But I think that's where the market is going to be heading there in terms of where we're going to be at, and obviously we've got to try and make the targets, this delivery targets of new build houses and homes. Just to finish this week, obviously we've got the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, which she celebrated 70 years on the 6th of February earlier this year. So an amazing achievement. Hopefully everyone's able to go out and celebrate that at the weekend and enjoy the long bank holiday.
Definitely.
That's it from me. But thank you very much for joining us today, David.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much, everyone.